All right, UP Middle School Baseball. Welcome back again. Tonight's topic's Infield. We've got Coach Brittain from the high school squad. He's responsible for the infielders. Hi, Coach. How are you tonight?
Good, Mr. Kresley. How's everything going at your end?
It's going. We're getting there. We've got Evan Shade, who's our returning second baseman as a junior, and Nate Reinhardt, who was in line to be our shortstop this year before bad things happened. Hi, Nate. All right, so we're going to start with Coach Brittain. He's going to talk a little bit about, what he looks for, what we look for in varsity level infielder, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead, Coach. It's all yours.
Well, as I thought about what we look for defensively, and I think that's what we're pretty much talking about.
Right.
Defensively in a varsity infielder, to me, is consistency. Is a guy who fields the routine ground balls routinely. And he doesn't have to, look like Ozzie Smith or look like the great shortstops in Major League fielding them. He just has to make the routine plays. And I think, guys who play in the infield are guys that we want to be able to trust game in and game out. And when the game's on the line, that they're going to be able to pick up a ground ball and throw a guy out at first. That's what we're really looking for. The flash is exactly that. It's flash. It's extra credit. You don't need to be able to have to do those things. I mean, to me, games are won and lost on routine plays, and the teams that make the routine plays are the teams that usually win. I can think back the last couple of years. We didn't win or lose games because somebody made a dazzling play in the infield. We won and lost games because either we didn't make a play we needed to, or our opponents didn't make a play that they needed to, and we were able to capitalize on it.
Right.
So for me, that's the big thing. I mean, we'll talk about fundamentals throughout this, and it's stuff that the guys that you guys, the middle schoolers, have heard before. But the fundamentals are so important. And the way you become good at making the routine plays is by being fundamentally sound. And the two guys that we have with us in Evan and Nate, both varsity players last year, as Evan as a sophomore and Nate as a freshman, they played varsity infield, played it well because they are both fundamentally very sound.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's, one thing that came to mind when I was listening to you talk there a couple of weeks ago. We had our pitchers on, right? We had Malachi and Eric on, and we were talking to them about, I threw the question to them about, how do you get out of a jam? Because every good pitcher gets into a jam. How do you get yourself out? And they both said, the big thing is to trust the guys behind you. And that really starts with your infielder, and especially your middle infielder. If you know they're going to make all the routine plays, then the pitcher doesn't have to be so perfect. And then he gets his butt back in there and he stays in the game longer. And since we are everybody here is well aware, because you two guys pitch too, we're in a pitch count world now, right? So extra outs not only mean potential giving up runs, but it's also one less inning maybe our pitcher can be out there. And when we make routine plays, that doesn't happen. Okay, Coach. So I know you've done a lot of work the last couple of years in the off season, especially with different training tools. So why don't you show the audience some of some of the middle school guys? It should be familiar to them, but I want them to hear it from you.
Sure. The big one that we use quite a bit, and my lighting isn't great, but they call it the waffle glove. They call it the flat glove. And you can get them pretty much at any decent sporting goods store. I know Dick's has them. That's where I got mine mostly from, and they're, $20 a piece. And the concept of the waffle glove or the flat glove is that it forces you to use your throwing hand in fielding a ground ball, in receiving a flip. I wouldn't try too much trying to receive a ball thrown full speed by somebody, but receiving a flip and working on your pivot and those sort of things. I'm a firm believer that you should use two hands whenever possible, but certainly when the ball is coming to you within the frame of your body. So whether it's on the ground within the frame of your body, or it's a throw or a line drive within the frame of your body, I'm a big proponent of using two hands. If the ball is outside the frame of your body, then absolutely you're going to have to use your glove hand in one hand. But then we'll talk a little bit about this in a bit. Then we need to make sure our head is down, close to the glove, that sort of thing. But the waffle glove, the flat glove, we use a lot in the beginning of the season, like you said, and a lot in our preseason, because it forces those fundamentals of using two hands. I like to talk about using the third hand, which is the chest. So once you field the ground ball, especially with the waffle glove, throwing hand on top, you bring it right to your chest and up to a throwing motion. And by bringing it up to your chest in that third hand, it helps you in case there's any kind of a bobble, and you're able to kind of get a good grip on the baseball. If you're out away from your body, then those bobbles end up on the ground, and that's an error. We're not going to get the runner out. So that's one of the training tools that I like to use. And another one that we used a little bit last year, we didn't really get into it as much this year, is something that Mr. Kresley made for us, based on a premise of trying to create bad hops in the gym. And all it is, you could use anything. You could use anything that creates a hop on a ground ball. His was just made out of PVC, and he put a little weight on the ends. And I know the middle school guys last year used it a little bit, and it just forces you to stay down on the ball, be ready for anything. And if you've ever been on our varsity field as an infielder, you know that you've got to be ready for anything. Bad hops are going to happen, and we need to take advantage of that as a home field and be ready for those bad hops. So that's just a little tool that we like to use to create some bad hops in the gym, because most of the time the gym hops are pretty true.
Yeah, and it really ramps up the concentration. The thing that I always hate about gym is it's always a good hop when it's a gym floor, unless the guy has a top spin thing. So it's really easy to get lazy in your
unless Coach Swanson's hitting rocket ground balls at
right. But I mean, it ramps up the concentration level, which I really like. All right, so before we come back to the ground ball technique, Coach, do you have any other tools there before we move on?
The only one that I had home that I would have I didn't bring out is my trusty tennis racket that we use quite a bit and we do it with a baseball. So it's sort of a baseball. You can do it with a tennis ball, and it's just getting a lot of reps on fly balls, and in a short period of time, without your dad or without a teammate having to hit fungos to you, which can be difficult for people. And we're able to do rapid fire fly balls. And for our infielders, it's a really good tool, because so many times you have a ball that could be Nate's at shortstop, could be Evans at second. And with the wind blowing, you never know where it's going to end up. And it really promotes great communication within our infielders. So the tennis racket we use quite a bit in the off season, and, pick one up at a flea market or a yard sale when those things get rolling again, and just, anybody can hit fly balls with those. That's why we do it, because it creates easy reps.
Yeah, that's great. All right. So I'm going to give you guys one of your questions here, and then we'll get into the actual ground ball technique stuff. So if I had to ask you guys 2 or 3 tips for being a successful infielder, what makes you guys successful infielders? We'll start with Evan. What are 2 or 3 things that come to mind when you think about that?
So the first thing I'd say is just in practice, just get as many ground balls as you can. That's just so simple, and it's probably the easiest way to prepare yourself for a game situation. Just have the coach or your dad or your sibling, anything, just have them hit it left, right, have slow rollers, they have to charge it, work on forehand, backhand, that sort of thing, and just get ground balls any chance you have. And what else? Yeah, something else I would say is talking with each other. I think we're going to talk about that later, having good communication. But short and second base, I think they need to know each other. They need to talk a lot. They need to know who's getting what ball, who's covering the bag, who's going to get the cut, that sort of thing. Always have a good relationship with your shortstop and everyone who's around you on the infield.
All right. Okay, Nate, same question. What makes you a successful infielder?
I mean, like Evan said, just reps in practice. If you're focused in practice, you're going to be focused in the game. And yeah, I mean, you got to have a good bond with your whole infield, not just second base. You got to know your players on and off the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing, Nate. I know things got cut short this year, but it's one thing I know that when we were in there in the preseason this year, I was talking to Coach Brittain about a lot. The one thing that I thought you were doing a great job of moving from a freshman to a sophomore is that you were taking your reps much more technically this year. I think you were a lot more focused on, hey, I want to do this the right way every time. As a freshman, I think, and no fault of your own, happy to be there, just using your athletic ability. But I thought, you really took a big step this year. And even though we're not on the field playing, I think that's going to serve you well going forward for sure. All right. So I'm going to move and share a screen here, and we're going to get some ground ball technique, stealing our YouTube video. And Coach Brittain's going to talk through it here a little bit. So let me go to here. This is where I'm going to wind up having to edit some stuff out. You see a Zoom thing now, guys, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
And while you're getting that going, Coach, both Evan and Nate both talked about getting reps. And I think what getting reps does for you and making sure that you're getting quality reps and you're working on your fundamentals. But what I think it does for you is it just creates confidence. And, and every infielder, anybody who's ever played the infield, I've always wanted my guys to want the baseball hit to them. And you can tell very, very quickly and very clearly who doesn't. And, both Nate and Evan are guys who relish the ball being hit to them, and they are they're confident when the ball is hit to them. And that's just because of the number of reps that they've taken. That anxiety is not there when the ball is hit to them. That oh crap moment that when the ball is hit to them, what am I doing? Because they've been through it over and over and over again. And, so that's what I think, the amount of reps that they've taken, and you can never get enough. Like there's never a point where I've had all that I need and I'm going to be the best infielder I can be. You can't ever have enough ground balls hit to you or rolled to you. You don't even need to be hit to you. Well, the premise of coming around the baseball is really to get you, once you've fielded the ball, to get you going in the proper direction with your momentum to make it an easier throw for you. Because once you field the ground ball, you've only done half the job. You still got to get it over there, right? But once he gets around it, you'll notice that he's got a wide base, his butt is down, his glove is down, and as important, his head is down. So when he fields the ball, the distance between his head and his glove is minimal. All right? That's a great shot right there. And there's a very, very little difference between where his head is and where his glove is. You show me a kid whose head is up and moving in the other direction of his glove when the ball arrives, I will show you somebody who should play the outfield. Okay?
Right.
Because he's afraid of the ball. And if he's afraid of the ball, he's not going to be able to make plays consistently.
All right, so here he's talking about his eyes and his glove position, Coach.
Yep. We talk about it all the time. Catch the ball with your face. And obviously, we don't mean it literally. We don't want you taking shots in the face. But what that means is your head needs to be as close to your glove when you're catching a ball or when you're fielding a ground ball. And we use that term a lot even with our first baseman. So when the first basemen are catching a ball at first, we want their head to be basically right behind their glove. When they're going down to pick a ball, when our guys make a low throw, we want their head to be as close to that glove as possible. Because if you see it, you got a really good chance to catch it.
All right, Coach, and you two guys, I want to ask you a question about this. This position right here, you see him with his hand on top, his bare hand. Now, we like to have the hands together. We know that. Some guys teach sort of the swinging gait from the side. Some guys teach this over the top. I'm looking at these two infielders, and to me, Nate's a little bit more of a swinging gait guy, right, from the side. Is that right, Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the side. And, Evan, you're a little more on top. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm always on top. Mm-hmm.
So the key is what though, Coach?
The key is to make sure you have both hands involved in what you're doing so that the transfer from the glove to the hand is a short one. The only thing that I'll say with the hand on top is you just want to make sure you don't kind of block the view of the baseball. And by you fielding it out in front of you, then you're going to have a better chance of not doing that. If you let the ball get in on your body and your hand is on top, then you have a chance to kind of lose the view of it as it's getting close to your body.
Yeah, so there's a good shot of Jeter up top there that, he's taking reps before a game.
But yeah, look how low he is. Now, Jeter is like 6'2", 6'3". He's a big dude. And he is so low to the ground because he's got such a wide base, his knees are bent, he's bent at the hips, right. And his head is down. That's a great picture there, because every infielder on the major league level, before the fans are in the seats, are out doing the same drills that we do at the varsity level and the same drills that you do at the middle school level. And those guys aren't above those fundamental drills because they know that if they do it enough, it's going to be routine when a ball's hit to them in the game.
Yeah, and when you think about the major leaguers, like that's Jeter. That's a shot of Jeter towards the end of his career, still out taking his ground balls. There was a story going around. I think Utley in his last year. Was it Utley who wasn't on the postseason roster, but the Dodgers were in the postseason?
Yep.
He's out there a half an hour before BP taking ground balls, and somebody asked him why, and he said, "I don't know any other way. That's just the way I do my job every day." All right. So we're going to bring it back to the guys now, and so. I want to talk a little bit about pre-pitch. So I'm going to start with you this time, Nate. So here's a situation like, pitcher just gets the ball back from the previous pitcher. Maybe a batter just got done hitting, or maybe it's the first pitch of the inning, right? Mm. What is your whole process? Take me through what you're thinking about, how you set yourself up. What's involved in pre-pitch for you?
I mean, making sure the whole infield is on the same page on the next play where the ball is going to go. And then, before every pitch, I kind of tap my glove and then get ready to go in position. That's really, other than that, I don't really know. Making sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, I just want to know the situation. Like if it's, first pitch of the inning or something, obviously I'm just going to first. But if it's going to be hit to the outfield, where am I going to be? Am I going to be a cutoff man? Am I going to be covering second? Am I going to be, where am I moving? Where is everyone else moving? I want to make sure everything lines up properly. Just know the situation. If there's a runner on second, everything's going to be different. If this guy leaves on a bunt, where am I going with the ball? Where am I covering? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and from pitch to pitch, those situations change, and that's why I'm saying pre-pitch. Like it's not the same for an entire batter necessarily, so you got to be really aware of that. I like what Coach Brittain was saying is you want people that want the ball, because I'll add to what you said before too, Coach, right? Like not only can you tell the guy that doesn't want the ball in baseball, for whatever reason, the baseball gods tell you the ball will find the guy who doesn't want the baseball. Mm-hmm. It just seems to happen that way. The other thing is that you got to be mentally ready with what am I going to do with the ball? The way Coach Thomas always taught me years ago was to teach it was what am I going to do with it when I get it? And then want the ball. Not if I get it, but when I get it. And I think these two guys here do a great job of, they very, very rarely get caught with, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do, or surprised to see a baseball. They do a fabulous job with that. Okay.
Yeah,
so
can I chime in on that a little bit, Coach?
Yep.
But it's not even enough though for these two guys to know exactly where they're going to go with it. As middle infielders, it's their job to make sure everybody knows where they're going to go with it. Make sure everybody in the infield knows what they're doing on a bunt, what they're doing on a steal. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation. It could be a word. You could turn around to your outfielder to make your outfield and just give them one word or two words to let them know where the ball needs to go if it's hit to them. Because we all have had teammates over the years that you have to babysit out there because their mind is not anywhere close to where it needs to be. So it's your job to make sure they're thinking of where it's going next. The other thing that I think, we were going to, if the season had progressed, that we were going to do a better job of this year, is looking as infielders, looking at the catcher and knowing what pitch is being called and what pitch is being thrown. You know, if you know a curveball, if Eric is throwing a curveball, Nate knows that, well, there's a really good chance the hitter is going to be ahead of it. So I can cheat 2 steps to my right. You know, Evan sees, okay, I can cheat 2 steps to my right because there's a good chance he's going to pull it or hit it up the middle. You know, Malachi's pitching, he's throwing an 88, 89, 90 mile an hour fastball, and you can cheat 2 steps left because you know that the right-handed batter is probably going to be late on it. So those are just little things that we were going to keep growing with and progressing with this year. And the things that maybe we didn't think about as freshmen and sophomores, now we think about a year later because we're growing as players. And that's one of the things that we were going to get into, and that's all pre-pitch stuff.
Right. So I'm going to add a question here for the 2 infielders too. So this doesn't have to be a pro player. It could be somebody who you've come up with, or somebody who's a little bit older than you, or somebody who's younger than you. Are there other players, whether they're pro or anybody else, that you've kind of looked at as models that you've tried to follow? I'll give you a minute to think about that in terms of the way they play the infield, or you know, who are they and what aspects do you really look to emulate from those people? I'll start with Evan on that one.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to go pro, I'd say Chase Utley because, you know, all my life was a Phillies fan, and I always usually played second base. He was second baseman, so that was just someone that he just worked hard no matter what, and I just love that about him. Like, he never even smiled on the field, and that's something, like, you can be loose out there, you know. Like, I'm not recommending just being stone cold the whole time, but Chase Utley was just – he just seemed like a ball player to me. Like, that guy played baseball, and I love watching him play. And you know, he might not be known for his fielding all the time, but he just had that work hard mentality that he would just do everything the best that he possibly could.
Yeah, and I think he's a great example of, he didn't always look pretty, but he very rarely let a ball get by him. And second base, you got that luxury a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So Nate, I'll throw the same question your way.
I mean, just like Chase Utley was also mine, always being a Phillies fan and everything. Even though I play short, he's stuck at second base, still an infielder. Like Evan said, he always had his face in the dirt. He was ready to go. He wanted the ball hit to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely wanted every ball. All right, awesome. So let's go to communication. Like, so here's the funny part. Like, I thought I was going to talk about communication with you guys separately. You've already brought it up a few times each. But I know you've both been in situations where communication's been good, or maybe you've been unsure of yourself and didn't communicate with your fellow infielders a little bit, and you got tied up a little bit. Let's get into more of the details of communication a little bit. I guess I'll start with Coach Brittain. Let's talk about communication a little bit. Let's let the guys add on then.
Well, for me in the infield, it starts pre-pitch stuff starts with a catcher. And then once the ball is hit, to me, the captain of the infield, the quarterback of the infield is always the shortstop. You know, I want my shortstop getting to everything he can possibly get to, but doing it with communication. Okay, and it could be verbal communication, it could be nonverbal, I don't care, but the communication has to be there. And a lot of the communication is done, we've talked about it, is done pre-pitch. When the ball is in the air, as infielders, we know that we've been taught ever since we've been little that we're going out as far as we can until somebody calls us off. Again, that's that communication. And it's stuff that we work on quite a bit, but we got to go out until one of the outfielders calls us off, or if an infielder has a better chance at it, then we're going to get it. But to me, it starts with our shortstop, and then it hopefully will trickle down from there.
Yeah. So Nate, you talked about everybody being on the same page and that kind of being your responsibility as a shortstop. Can you elaborate on that piece of it a little bit?
I mean, knowing the batter, really, that's up the plate. If it's the second time he's been up there where he hit it last, letting know the outfield, infield, that, he hit it the first this time. He had pulled it, hit it up the middle, just letting everyone know. Just be ready on their toes, where to go with the ball when it's hit to them.
Okay. So, Evan, I'm going to –
and that's the thing, Coach. You know, to me, a quick little word or two before a pitch that gets somebody thinking, might prevent a mistake instead of being quiet and just letting it happen and see what happens and hope for the best. Because ultimately, if the right fielder makes an error or the shortstop makes an error, it's our error. And it's something that's going to cost us a game. And then the other part of communication that I want to talk about is after something good or bad happens, the best teams are the ones who are talking, that are picking guys up when they've made a mistake, making sure they're not hanging their head, or, congratulating them when they make a play. And I was seeing a little bit more of that with this year's group. And I was really looking forward to seeing where that was going to progress, because, and they've heard it from me, I've never seen a good, quiet team.
Right. And it doesn't, right. And it's not a long conversation necessarily. It's just constant. So, Evan, we know you communicate with your shortstop a lot. And these days that's Nate next to you.
Mm-hmm.
Other than your shortstop, what kind of other communication goes on with you and your teammates when you're in the field at second base?
Yeah. So, well, one thing, just every single pitch, I say something to the pitcher, just something generic. Just say, hey, you got this. Hey, keep throwing strikes, something. Just throw stuff out, let them know you're there, of course. And then I'm also talking to my first baseman a lot from second, Dave Kilroy. We're always pointing out to each other, like if a lefty comes up to bat, as soon as he puts one foot in the batter's box, we look at each other and we give each other a little signal, like this guy's a lefty, it might pull it this way to us. If we know that he pulled it the last time, we're gonna both shift a little bit. He'll say, hey, you probably gonna get a ball here,
And
that
look,
sort of
that's
thing.
really important communication, because I played first base when I played 100 years ago, right? And so my thing always was with the second baseman was, yeah, I want to go get stuff to my right, but yeah, I got a responsibility at the bag, right? So I need to know, I would almost want to communicate where that line is, and that line doesn't stay in the same place all game long, right? It depends on the batter. So I'm only going to come this far. I need to make sure you're in position to where you need to be. So that's certainly really, really important to hear.
Yeah, and there's definitely times I'll say if there's a pop-up and it's behind you, let me go get it. Like I know Dave running straight backwards for you is going to be a lot harder than me running sideways back. I have a bit better of an angle to it. I can get to it better. If the right fielder's not going to be there, I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. Like we have to figure it out somehow. We're just going to talk no matter what's going to happen.
All right. So let's talk situational stuff here. Let's say we're in a jam. Let's say it's a important ball game, second half of the season, in position to try to get yourselves into some sort of Final Four or into a playoff spot, or just a really tough division game and it's like a one-run ball game, and we just had an error or two in a row, or a pitcher scuffling, or what's your mindset, Evan? Like, how do you communicate? Who do you communicate? Do you ever call timeout yourself and go talk to somebody, or what's it like when you're in the huddle on the mound, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, on the mound, I love to reassure people. Like I think that's what everyone does. I think we just come together and we know that we have to be a unit at this point. Like we have to be a team together. Like it's never an individual game. It's always saying, hey, I know you missed that ball last inning, but we need you this inning. And I know you're gonna fix your mistake from last time. Like don't let that eat you up, that sort of thing. Definitely support the pitcher, support the catcher, because they have really tough jobs out there. The catcher is probably dead tired by then, and they have a ton of pressure, relaying signs and stuff. And if you think someone doesn't know the signs, if you're not sure about the signs, ask someone real quick. If you didn't get the chance to in the dugout, like first, of course, make sure you know it in practice or in the dugout before the game starts. But if you're under a lot of pressure and you're like, wait, what's that sign supposed to be? Just ask, like, hey, if there's a pickoff sign, is it this or this? Like, what's it going to be? What's it going to look like? And make sure you know everything so that when that situation comes, because it will at some point, I guarantee something's going to go wrong, know what you're going to do for that.
All right, Nate. So I'm going to change it up on you just a little bit. So shortstop, quarterback of the infield. What if you're the guy that makes the error? What if you're the guy that makes the mistake, and now you got to come together, but you still got to support everybody else? How do you handle that situation?
For me, it's just knowing I can get the next play, and that's just a mistake, and just slowing my heart rate down and controlling the game at my own pace. I mean, like game's really a lot of mental. It's a lot. You just got to be mentally stable throughout the whole game. You can't let it get to you.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any specific techniques you use to slow your heart rate down at all, or is it just a thought? Or
I don't really have any techniques. I guess it's just confidence. I know I can get the next play.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, because everybody's going to make the mistake. We started to do more of that mental work in the preseason this past year with the middle school guys. And like the communication thing I wanted to go back to before, like knowing where you're going with the ball, and Evan, you're talking about, and that you're talking about making sure everybody knows where they're going with the baseball. I always try to tell the middle school players, look, if you're in the outfield, say, and you track a ball down and you come up 100% confident, full speed ahead, and you throw a dart to the wrong base, I could live with that at middle school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you pick a ball up constantly and are tentative, don't know where you're going with the ball, and now your infielders are tentative and they're not talking to you, now to me, we've got a bigger problem. That's not a player I can send forward with confidence to the high school program thinking that they're going to grow. If you communicate well and you do it, and you do it with some gusto and you do it with some sort of thought, but it's wrong, we can fix that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see guys get jammed up a lot because they don't want to be wrong, and then therefore they do nothing, and that's even worse.
Yeah, it's terrible when you got someone who's just holding the ball there and everyone starts yelling at you at once, say, throw the ball, and it's just the whole team falls apart when that happens, so you never want that.
Well, and that's why the thinking part has to come pre-pitch, right? You can't think and play at the same time, right? The ball's hit to you, you got to react to it. You can't be thinking, okay, of three different things. You got to think about fielding a ground ball and knowing where you're going to go with it because you've already thought that through. And, outfielders especially, balls on the ground, they're concentrating should be concentrating on picking it up and then throwing it to the base, the voice, wherever you guys are telling them. But we don't want those guys thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. When I have a ground ball coming to me, it's just natural. Like everything just flows together. You know what base you're going to go to before it comes to you, that sort of thing.
That comes from the pre-pitch. That comes from the reps. That comes from all that stuff. Okay, so if I ask the two of you as players, you guys have been around each other a little while now, right? You guys seen each other. You play with each other for quite a while, a few years now. Mm-hmm. What do you like about the other guy's game as an infielder? We'll talk about defense now again too. So I'll start with Evan. When you see Nate play or you play with Nate, what do you like most about his game?
Oh, well, I think it's something that we kind of brought up already, is that he doesn't let anything bother him. He doesn't get shaken up during a game. Like, he doesn't make many errors at all anyway, but if something goes wrong, he's not going to dwell on it. Like, he doesn't get mad. Like, you can't tell when something goes wrong with him. He's very straightforward. He's going to make the next play, even if the last play didn't go as planned. That's something I really respect. And also, he has a cannon. He always throws a dart to first, which is much appreciated when someone lollipopping it over.
Okay, Nate, other way around.
A lot of confidence, I know, in me, and I know he has confidence in himself. I know he'll make the play. He knows where to go with it every time. Yeah, I mean,
there's no doubt about that. I talked about it when I introduced Evan, when I had him on with the hitters the last time. Probably one of the most consistent players I know of. Mm-hmm. Over the years I worked with is, Evan is just really, really consistent. So, Coach, I'm going to let you talk about these two guys a little bit and, about how they fit the mold and what you see in a good infielder. But the one thing I would say about these two guys, and Coach, because we talk a lot, like when I talk about infielders, I always talk about hands and feet. Those are the important things, and especially the middle infielder, hands and feet. And when I think of Evan, I think of somebody with great hands whose feet are getting a lot better. And when I think of Nate, and I worked with Nate when he was younger as well, a little bit in the summertime, and Nate's got really good feet, and in this past year, I think his hands have really started to improve. And when those two things, so it's almost like these two guys have had the other skill, but they're really emerging the other way now, and they're becoming more complete infielders.
Yeah, so I'll talk about Evan first. Evan impressed me in the fall of his sophomore year, and he impressed me more offensively, and I think as a coaching staff, he impressed us all offensively. The way he battled, the way he would stay in at bats. But defensively was where I was telling the other coaches, hey, don't sleep on his defense. Because, again, he's not flashy, but he'll make all the plays we need him to make. And at that point, fall of sophomore year, we didn't know if Evan was going to be a JV player or a varsity player.
Right.
And everybody was pretty confident that we thought he could hit at the varsity level. And it was just a matter of whether he was going to be able to play the position. And I was quite confident he was going to be able to play the position because he does work, really hard. He worked really hard that off season after fall ball. I know him and I worked almost every day after lifting on the fundamentals, and so he basically worked his way into earning that varsity spot as a sophomore. Nate basically earned the right to be a varsity player last year. You know, playing behind an all-league player in Justin Warnham, and Justin was going to be our shortstop. We knew that, but we also knew that Justin was going to pitch for us quite a bit. And we had other options at shortstop. We could have very easily left Nate down at JV and let him just stay there and have the year down there. But for me, I don't care what grade you're in. If you can play, you can play. And Nate's a gamer. That's the one thing I'll say about Nate. The moment's never too big for him. There wasn't a time where we put Justin on the mound and Nate at short. Now, mind you, he had a run from the JV field to the varsity field after a couple JV at-bats because we never knew when we were going to need Justin to come in and throw strikes. But we needed Nate there to play a solid shortstop. And we never felt like, I really wish we had Justin at shortstop in this situation late in games. And that's what Nate found himself in late in varsity games when everything is magnified. You know, he made the plays. And he's just he's solid. I think he does a little bit more of what he does through athleticism.
Right.
And I think that Evan does a little bit more what he does through just solid fundamentals.
Yeah, no doubt. So, and that experience you got, Nate, I think is really important now because of what happened to us this year. You know, without having that varsity experience going into your junior year now next year, that would be a lot harder. So thank goodness that opportunity presented itself last year now, looking back on it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and so it's good to see you guys with time yet in the program because the last 2 weeks I did this, we had seniors sitting with us, and that's always a tough conversation. So I'm glad that you guys aren't going to be ending high school careers on this note talking to me on Zoom. I appreciate you coming to help out, talking to the middle school kids about this. So one more thing I want to talk about, then we're gonna wrap it up. I know I heard a couple of people mention it in the off season in the weight room. I know we have made a real big push in the off season the last couple of years. Now, right now we're away from it. But we've done a lot of off-season work on people working on their bodies. So I just want a quick comment out of the three of you in terms of what's important about that and how it's, you know, how it helps the program and how it helps you guys.
Ev, why don't you go first, and then I'll talk on it last then.
Yeah, sure. So my thing is just to be there. Like the coaches are going to set up what time we have lifting, and they're going to say, all right, here's our first meeting of the season. It's at this time. We'll probably be done at this time. Be there. And usually kids who go out for the team don't go to lifting, and they're the guys that don't play. And there's a reason for that. Like, you earn your work. By working hard, you earn your way onto the team. And you got to show up, and you got to grow. You got to get stronger. You got to build up your endurance. You know, going through those workouts, they last, you know, half hour, 45 minutes. You're going to get tired. But if you're there and you keep pushing hard, you're going to show the coaches what you're capable of. And even if you're not the biggest or strongest, you can grow in that way, get stronger, and just keep working hard. And then also after lifting, my favorite thing on the day of lifting is that I could go outside and Coach Brittain be hitting off the tennis racket. He'd hit us some fly balls. He'd hit us a couple ground balls maybe. We'd use the flat gloves like Coach Brittain showed at the beginning, just take more reps. Even if it's not a practice, we're getting reps in after a workout. So that's what I love.
Nate?
Yeah, lifting's a huge part of the game. I mean, people want to throw harder and hit farther. That's not just going to happen overnight.
Right.
Got to lift. Got to get stronger. I mean, it's good team bonding time too. Get to know players and coaches, getting your face out there, letting coaches know you want a spot on the team.
Yeah, and I think as a program we've made some strides, right, Coach?
Absolutely. I mean, we could have the greatest strength and conditioning coach in the world setting up our program, but it's the guys who come in and put the work in. I mean, we know that there's guys who come in and they do everything to the letter of what's written down, and they don't skip a rep. And we also know there's guys who just kind of walk around and and talk to people, and they look at the weights a little bit, but that's about the extent of what they do. And they're not getting away with anything. They're there, and we appreciate the fact that they're there. But both the guys we have with us today, both of them, this past offseason got incredibly stronger. I know Coach Wickard, like 3 or 4 times, was mistaken Nate for Malachi, because Nate had the longer hair going at the time. And that's just because Nate just got so much bigger in the offseason. I mean, obviously he got a little bit taller, but he got a lot stronger too. But Nate, you made a really good point about the teamwork and the camaraderie that spending time in the weight room leads to. Dave Kilroy was always great for, never minded going outside and grabbing a couple guys with him after lifting to go take some tennis racket balls. And, and I would say, it's cold out here. And he would say, Coach, we got to play when it's cold out. And I'm like, all right, let's go. If you're going to go, I'm going to go. So, and that's, part of being a leader, but it's also part of being a team. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you're going to fall back on in tough spots in games, is that camaraderie with your teammates.
And I know, Evan, during this difficult time where we don't have access to stuff, I know you got some work going on that you kind of got set up with the program. So you're currently working with what, an agility ladder and some dumbbells and some resistance bands and some of that kind of work, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I had my doubts. I was like, I'll still get some work in, but 45 minutes of work, by the time that's done, I'm out of breath. I'm sore the next day or two. And, it's important. You don't want to just sit around and, lose everything that you've worked so hard for. Like, keep pushing yourself, even if you don't have a lot of resources, which I don't really, but, you work with what you got. Go on YouTube and find thousands of videos about stuff you can do to lift, to use resistance bands, get faster, get stronger, that sort of thing. It'll help your game.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I do appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this with me on an evening. I know you guys spend a lot of time staring at screens right now, just like I do. It's not the preferred method of doing stuff, but the nice thing is that I got a nice little bank of video for a middle school program. I really appreciate your help. So thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon, hopefully around a ball field soon, right? And
yeah, hopefully.
Have a good evening, fellas.
All right, take
Thank
care,
you.
guys.
You too.
Thanks,
See ya.
boys. Be good.
Bye-bye.